All right, it's time to get started. Welcome everybody to today's webinar. It's Email Archive System Migration with Retain and Akaibu. My name is Sheldon. I'm a marketing manager here at Guava, and I'm here with Q Mangus. He is the Director of Product Marketing here at Guava. I just want to start off by thanking everybody for attending the webinar and a couple quick announcements. Guava was recently awarded the Best Overall Value and Champion for Content Email Archiving by the Infotech Research Group, which is awesome, but I'm not going to go into detail about that. I think Q will probably bring that up later. Second, we've launched our newly redesigned and revamped guava.com website. It's more powerful, more resources, easier to navigate. If you haven't already, go check it out. And lastly, we'll be changing our format of webinars here shortly. We're going to have more of an interview style live video broadcast, so make it more interactive, hopefully a little more entertaining. Today we're going to have a Q&A session with Q Mangus, our Director of Product Marketing, on how Retain and Akaibu work together to ensure a seamless archive migration. I'll be filling a few questions and Q will be answering them. For those of you who are just joining us, Q is the Director of Product Marketing here at Guava. We have several frequently asked questions on this subject. However, if you have any questions as we go through the webinar, please put them through in the Q&A panel or the chat panel, and Q will be sure to address those. And how you do that is just click on the chat or QA icon and you can type those in. Q, do you want to introduce yourself?
Welcome, everyone, and thanks for being here. Yes, I'm, as Sheldon said, I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Guava, and I'll be answering your questions here. And as Sheldon said, there's a lot of information that we're going to get through today about email archive system migration. So I hope you can stick with us, and please feel free to ask any questions. But I hope you can benefit from what we're going to discuss, and we're excited that you're here.
Awesome. Well, with that, let's just jump right into it. How about? First question I have for you is, what are some reasons that an organization might want to migrate an archiving system? Why would somebody want to take the time and hassle of migrating their archive?
Great. That's a good question to start off with. I do have a slide here that kind of talks about that. So, a lot of organizations have seen the need to migrate, and we've talked to a number of them and seen some of the things that they've experienced that have made them decide to want to make that switch. And with the introduction of newer archiving solutions, like of course Retain, there has been that shift. Email archiving has been around for a long time, and when it first came out, there was a number of vendors that started in that jumped into that space and started to do email archiving, and those particular vendors or those organizations that offered those type of solutions, they're still built on that technology, meaning that many of those archiving solutions are built on that legacy technology that they started out with just email archiving. A lot of vendors tried to take their email archive and then just, add on to that and add on a module or add on another piece to try and do what is demanded today, which is archiving all electronic communication. I'll talk about that for a minute. But just realize that that's one of the biggest concerns that organizations have, is that they may have this archiving solution that was built for email archiving. However, things have changed a lot to where organizations are demanding and need other types of archiving, and these legacy type of solutions haven't kept up with the need in the marketplace. And so some other things that may be lacking. So that's the first thing, is that legacy technology. Next is that ability to archive social media. And like I said, a lot of these legacy technologies that were built primarily for email archiving haven't kept up, and they may not support social media. And as we're probably all aware of, that's something that's being demanded right now, is that social media can be archived, which kind of goes along with the next point, is the ability to proactively prevent things from being posted to social media or instant messaging, and that's with monitoring and filtering. That's something that many organizations are in need of, And there's many solutions on the marketplace, Retain being one of them, that will help you to be able to not just archive them, these communications, and have them to be able to prove your case and be more of a reactive type solution, but you could have a proactive solution that actually goes out there and prevents your employees from posting things that they shouldn't be on social media or via instant messaging. And so that there's another reason why many organizations want to make that migration, is they want to be able to have a tool that will monitor, filter, block, and then of course archive social media as well. And then moving right along is you have this idea of mobile archiving. So the ability to be able to archive mobile communications. You've got text messages, phone call logs, and you've got a lot of your employees that are bringing their own devices to work. And so you need to be able to have oversight of those communications. And many legacy archiving solutions, and it may be one that you're currently using, does not have support for that mobile. And so you need to make that switch to be able to have that support so that you don't have to have multiple solutions. That's the other part too, is the ability to have all of your communication in one central archive. So there's a good chance that many of you on this call today have an email archiving solution, but you have seen the need to be able to archive mobile and social media. You probably don't want to have a separate solution for each one of those. Think how much more difficult that's going to be to manage if you have one solution for your email archiving, another solution for social media, and another one for mobile. And that's one of the reasons why many organizations choose to switch. They want to choose a solution that's going to be able to support all of that. Then there's some other things that I'll hit on really quick, and this idea of real-time data delivery. This is a big need that organizations are seeing now. For years, archiving has been about you take a bunch of data, you throw it in an archive, and you set it back in your server, and you never worry about it until you get sued. Well, nowadays, you need to be able to access that data on a regular basis and be able to have tools to be able to give you insights into that data, be able to search the archive, get information, restore messages to the mailbox, be able to get a sense of the overall health of your organization by running reports and statistics on what's being communicated. You can get information on projects. So this is stuff that is included in newer archiving 2.0 solutions like Retain, and that older solutions don't have. And then a lot of the legacy solutions have a limited archive access. They may not allow your end users to access their personal archive, which creates a burden for IT, because IT is going to be the only one who can access it. And so that means end users are going to come to them and ask them for, to restore a message into their mailbox from the archive, or that your legal teams might be bothering them to perform an e-discovery request because they don't have access to it. This is something that is pretty common with these legacy systems. Next, you have this lack of web access, and many solutions have this problem where they have, because they were built back in the day when clients were so prevalent, they don't have the ability to let your users or your administrators or anyone access the archive from the web, limiting their access. They'd have to access it through a client. This is pretty common as well, depending on what system is being used. So that's something to consider as well. If you're running into that, you're probably a good candidate to make a migration. The final thing, there's two last things. One of them is the separate modules. I kind of touched on that before. If you do have a solution that does archive email and social and mobile, there's a good chance that they're separate solutions bundled into one. And you may have to log into separate solutions, separate systems to access each one. Like I said, it all depends on your solution, your system, your archiving system that you have now, but there's a good chance that you have a separate login for each type of communication that you're trying to get at, and that's difficult. You want to be able to access everything from one central location. And finally, there's this idea of limited email platform support. There's a good chance that many of you have more than one email system, more than one type of email system that you're running in your organization. This is very common for larger organizations, especially government or education, where one set of one group will have one type of email system. Like let's take a university, for example. It's pretty common for the students to have access to Gmail, and then all the staff to have access to like Exchange or Office 365. And so you need to be able to have a solution that will support any kind of email system that you're running. And then, of course, that's in addition to social media, instant messaging, and mobile communication. That all needs to be into one central archive. So those are a few points that we've seen, and we've talked to organizations about why they want to move their archiving system. I would imagine that you have some reasons as well. And hopefully these, what we talked about here, will help you see if you do run into these problems, know that there are better systems out there and that a migration can happen, and we can help you make that migration easy.
Awesome. Kind of like as Q said, these are a lot of general reasons, but if you have any questions specific to a platform you're on or thinking about, there are a lot of specifics to, depending on the platform of why, whether they don't archive social, mobile, or trying to export it. The e-discovery can be a big piece. There's lots of reasons. That kind of brings us to the next question. What are some concerns that organizations or my organization may have when migrating email archiving systems?
Yeah, there can be a number of things that you have that would be some concerns. Let me pull up a slide here that will kind of help with that. So this here is some of the features of the solution. So we at Guava, we've teamed up with Akaibu, who's a leader in migrations for archiving systems. And so they have a great solution to help you migrate your archive system. And of course, we would encourage you, if you're looking to migrate, to look at Retain. And we'll talk a little bit more on this call about Retain. But with that, I wanted to bring this slide up just to know that some of the concerns that you may see would be that it's time consuming, right, and disruptive. So when you're doing a migration, it can take a lot of time and it can disrupt your day-to-day business. It can also take up a lot of resources and, like I said, impact your business processes. This is something that is a big concern, and you want to make sure to mitigate that concern. And the other idea is, if you have a lot of data, how long is that going to take? So length of time. The other one is also losing metadata, right? So that's a big question that a lot of people have is loss of data. There's a chance that you can lose data when you're doing an archive migration. You want to make sure that everything's moved over, everything that you need, and that, of course, no metadata is lost. That's important because that metadata is essential when you're involved in litigation or just for building reports or getting to your business processes and understanding and having that insight into your business processes. And then, of course, the other thing is, as we stated before, is being able to have something that's efficient and complete. And so what I want to talk about is, so those are some of the concerns you may have. So that business disruption, losing data, how much time it's going to take, the amount of resources that it's going to take. And so to help with those issues or those concerns that you may have, I just wanted to touch a little bit about how the solution Akaibu, there's a solution Evolve, helps with that. What it does is that, as you can see, I've listed a few of the things that they can do, but Akaibu has uncomplicated functionality to really help ensure that the migration is easy and complete. So there's a migration engine that is non-invasive and make sure that the migration happens without it being disruptive. So what you can do, and what's really cool, is when we're talking about the non-disruptive migration in particular, you can schedule tasks around business-critical people and processes within the organization. So you can have it be done during off hours, you can prioritize certain individuals or groups, and you can schedule it depending on minimum system load and peak time. So you can, if you have a peak time where people are accessing the archive, you can reduce how much is being archived at that time. So we make sure that the migration is not disruptive to your business processes. Next, you don't have to install any agents on the archive or mail servers. And so that's great because, once again, it's not disrupting and it's making it that much easier. Akaibu Evolve just runs in the background, and your users won't even notice that it's happening. The other thing too, and I'll get into this a little bit later on based on some of the questions, is some of the architecture there. But what's great is that with Evolve is it's called parallel migration architecture. So what that does is it allows you to be able to have multiple instances of the migration going on at the same time, the migration process going on at the same time. So depending on the size of your migration, you can increase how much you throw at it to make sure it doesn't bottleneck. So that's going to make sure that that the migration is quick. And then you have metadata scanning. What it does is it makes sure that all information is migrated, that all the metadata is preserved between the source and the target, which goes down to mitigating your risks. What's cool about it too is that when you're doing this migration, the archive is not altered or deleted at all during the migration process. So if there is ever a problem, you can roll back. There's a full rollback to your solution. So during that migration process, if you ever do have to go back, nothing's been changed on that original archive. And then, of course, the servers that are being used to migrate the information can be backed up in-house. So everything can be backed up and preserved during the entire chain as it's going through the migration. And of course, this idea of data integrity and fidelity, we talked about that, how you don't want to lose things, you don't want to lose your metadata. So Evolve communicates natively with its supported archive and mail platforms. So when it talks to the archive and your email system, it talks to it natively. So you're going to know that everything is going to be preserved. And then you can actually, what they like to call fingerprint emails, using MD5 hash algorithms. Basically what that means is that the integrity of transfer data is there. Everything is being ensured that nothing is lost and that all your metadata is transferred over to the new archive, that your migration is complete and nothing is lost. And then, of course, there is this complete and efficient migration where you can do one-to-one, many-to-one, or one-to-many auto mapping between source and target archives. There's debugging and error resolution, and deduplication, meaning that, so basically the idea there is that when you're making that migration, all data is going to be preserved. So I know that was a lot as an answer to the question, but just know that there are those concerns that you may have with the loss of data, how much time it's going to take, the disruption, and how much resources you're going to throw at it. And the point of this call is to kind of give you some help on that, and just know that with the solutions that we provide, you're going to make sure that those concerns are mitigated.
Awesome. We have a question coming through. Might actually fit well with our next section. Basically, if you can go in and kind of show the steps of how that migration can be seamlessly done with Akaibu. The question, just so it's in your mind queue, is there any tool to compare your data after migration to be able to tell if all your data has been migrated?
Perfect. Yes. The short answer is yes. There is as part of the solution, there is so right here, it's good that you said that, because right here in the next slide we have this, the final bullet there is the full point in time statistical analysis and the real-time inspection. I realize that we're missing a bullet point there, but there should be a bullet next to real-time inspection because those are two things. But what's great with the full point in time statistical analysis is you get real-time measurement of throughput and estimated job duration. So that's telling you how it's going. But then with real-time inspection, you can actually see what is being migrated, and you'll be able to freeze source archives ahead of migration, and then that'll help make sure that it's optimized from the source to the target. So those are two things that kind of hit on that. And then there's the intelligent workflow as well that makes sure that migrations are performed simply, and then you can do these analysis really quick to see as you're going on that making sure the status of the migration and that it's being done. And then, yes, after the migration, it will give you reports on what has been migrated. Those are some of the benefits of Evolve. So yes, the short answer is yes, there's a tool there to make sure that you can compare your data in the migration and make sure it's all been migrated with the metadata as well. That leads us to, quicker, more information, and that's some of the benefits, which is you have a quicker turnaround because of there's not as many disruptions. You have, like I talked about it before, is that scheduling, making sure that you use the correct times, that workflow that I talked about, and then this bulk transfer of user data to make sure that everything is pushed over. I'd like to show really quick that will kind of answer some questions here, just a little bit about the architecture here of the migration with Akaibu. So you have the source mail and then you have the target, right? So you have the source, the mail, and the archive exists in 3 separate locations. You have shortcuts, email, and the archive mail. And then it's also split up by date. And this is an example, it could be 1 to 3 years, 3 to 7, and 7+ years. This is just an example. This would be different for each organization, but it is generally split up by date. And then, of course, it's replicated across the organization. So this diagram shows you a few, but of course that could be, many more. But it is replicated across the organization depending on number of active and inactive users. When the migration process is done, there's 2 servers. There's the migration engine, and that moves the data from the source to the target. And then, of course, the SQL server that tracks the move for full chain of custody. So you're making sure that everything is moved over item by item. And then here's a little bit of the migration process. The first thing you want to do is configure and set up the policies. Then you set up a path between the existing source, so the mapping profile. Then what you'll do is you'll actually schedule jobs, and like I said, that we talked about that comprehensive schedule, is you'll set up and run a number of jobs that'll batch the data by user, date, and other filters. So depending on how you want to do that, you can do that. So as you can see, it'll take batches and take them over into the new system, which is really cool, making it more efficient. So you can batch that information and bring it all over, and everything is brought over as we were showing. And then, of course, as I talked about, you can run reports. You can have a chain of custody success and failure corruption. So you'll be able to go back and see what has been migrated, how it was migrated, and ensure that all your data was migrated. The other nice thing, too, I talked about that a little bit, is you can actually run multiple jobs at the same time. So here we have that same scenario. So it's scalable, so you can spin up as many servers as you need. So you can have more servers running and having more jobs run at the same time. So if you have a large migration, it's going to be that much easier. So let's take, for example, that you want to do a job that takes the newer items first, and then the second job will take the things that are older. You see that they'll be able to batch that and run parallelly. Is that a word? Run at the same time. Just making up words here. But what's great too is that the different jobs don't have to be going to the same target. So if you're migrating email systems at the same time, you can also go from one email system to another, and it doesn't matter if they're going to different systems. You can easily do that. And then, once again, the speed depends on a number of factors. So one would be the source environment. That'll have a large impact. The quality of your email servers or archive servers, and then the number and quality of servers running jobs. So that's another thing. So the first one is the source, and then the next one is how many servers you have running. Then, of course, you have the backup and maintenance windows can also influence your throughput. So that's another thing, too. As we talked about, you want to be backing things up, but that can influence how quickly it is. And then the state of the target environment will also impact the throughput and the ability of the target servers. So those are some things to be aware of that can affect your speed. Here's something cool. The Evolve server can be expected to move about 2.5 to 3.5 terabytes per month, pretty quick. And like we said, you can spin up more servers to do more depending on how much you need. There's another cool thing when it comes to shortcuts. We talked about the 3 parts of the email archive. You have extensive control for your shortcuts. So during a migration, Evolve will move the data, and then it will address the shortcuts. And then here's something really cool, is it actually updates the shortcuts in your email system, so like Outlook, after the mail has been moved. So in this example, this is an example of an Enterprise Vault archive. So they're moving an organization is moving from Enterprise Vault to Retain. Evolve will actually give you the ability to take those old shortcuts, no longer point them to your legacy archive. It'll now point to your new archive, which in this case is Retain. And then, of course, if you don't need those shortcuts anymore, depending on your email system or what you're doing, Evolve can help ensure that they can be deleted. So once again, here's a little bit of what, and this is just something to take a snapshot in your head. If you want more information, if you want any of the stuff that we've given you in this presentation, just be aware that you can go out to our website, and this kind of information is available. And of course, this webinar has been recorded for you to go back and look at. So here's just a little snapshot of some of the things to consider when it comes to the source environment, your architectural considerations, and the target environment. And just kind of to sum it up, all your data is migrated. And if you have doubts about that, there are reports to help you with that. And then, of course, along the way, there's backup and maintenance. There's fallback so that you can ensure that if anything does go wrong, that you're going to have a backup. You're going to make sure that that you can roll back if needs be. So that's what's great about this with Evolve, is that you can make sure that that all your bases are covered and that you are mitigating the risks the best you can.
Awesome. Well, that was quite the crash course in Akaibu. Well, let's just jump into Retain then, and how Retain can help with migration.
Great. So we talked a little bit about excuse me, I was just flipping slides there, about Akaibu and the migration. So what's great about this is with Retain coupled with Akaibu is you have the ability to move your email archive from your legacy system to Retain. And of course, what Retain does is it helps ensure that you have a complete archive. So when you make the move, you'll know that you now have a solution that archives email, that archives social media, mobile, instant messaging. And then of course, it can, when it's tied to your new system, Retain now ties to your new email system, your social media, your mobile, and it can go back and with that migration, go back and see everything that has been migrated, and you don't lose any information. And of course, everything in Retain is platform agnostic, so that allows you to move email systems as well, simply and easily, without having to implement an entire migration solution. When it comes to migrating your email platform, you can do that with Retain because everything is tied into Retain in platform agnostic format, and so if you move to another email system, it'll be easy to do. I won't go too much into Retain, the solution yet, but just know that when you make that switch, you have a better solution, and you have the ability to migrate your email system later, and everything is tied into Retain, and you have access to your legacy archive in Retain, and using Akaibu, you'll make sure to not lose any information.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump into that leads me to the next question, which you kind of set me up for it, is what makes Retain different then? I mean, this is the Akaibu Guava webinar. Why should I go with Retain?
So I realize that it's even on the screen there, so yeah, it seems like a setup, doesn't it? But just know that this is some of the things that make Retain different, right? Why Retain is different than your legacy system or even other archiving solutions on the market. We talked about legacy technology. It's built on the latest technology for email, mobile, social media, instant messaging, and web search, monitoring and archiving. You have the ability to have a complete social media archiving. I'll touch on the platforms that are supported in just a moment. You have the ability to monitor, filter, block, and alert social media and instant messaging. So as your employees are communicating on social media and instant messaging, Retain will actually allow you to filter and set up policies to prevent things from being posted that you don't want your employees to post. That would be violating policy, or that would damage your company reputation or create a difficult situation. Then, of course, you have mobile communication archiving. Retain would be able to archive that. And all of this information is archived into one central archive. You can see there's a point there about the unified archive. So that's one of the big things that makes Retain different, is that it's one central archive for all of your electronic communication. And from that archive, you can perform e-discovery, you can do searches, you can get insights into your corporate communication. You can export to PDF, PST into a standalone archive viewer. You can grant end users access to their own archive, and you can grant other teams access to the archive so that your IT department isn't isn't needing to do everything for everyone. They can grant rights to a legal team or an auditor to come into your archive and do searches. And then, of course, there's this idea of immediate access and search of archive messages. We talked a little bit about this, but a lot of legacy systems have quite a bit of latency when it comes to when a message is available to search. With Retain, all messages are archived and they're immediately available for access, search, and e-discovery. There's a near zero latency between the time a message is archived and when it is indexed and available to be searched. And there is what we call the Retain High Performance Indexing Engine, and you can use multiple instances of that depending on your needs to ensure that your archive runs quick, that when messages are pulled into Retain, it's done very quickly and it's indexed quickly. And then you have the Web Access Archive Viewer, so you can access the archive any place at any time. And then, of course, multiple platform email support. And then I touched a little bit about the e-discovery tools. So from within Retain, you can perform searches, you can restore emails, you can place legal holds, you can export, you can perform redaction, tag messages. So there's a number of things you can do with built-in e-discovery tools. It's not something that you have to get another solution to perform e-discovery. It's all part of Retain. And then just kind of as a review, here's a quick view of everything that Retain supports. So there's as I stated, the unified archiving of mobile. So we support Android, BlackBerry. So with Android, it's SMS, MMS text messages and phone call logs. With BlackBerry, it's SMS, MMS, BBM, PIN, and phone call logs. And then with iOS, we've partnered with a company called CellTrust to give you encrypted and secure communications. It's a separate app that separates your business communication from personal, and through this app your employees can communicate. It gives them a separate business number to be able to call and to be able to text, and then Retain archives information from that. And then, of course, across the board, you've also, if you're looking to implement BBM Protected, which can be deployed on iOS, Android, and BlackBerry, Retain integrates directly with BBM Protected to be able to archive those messages. And then with email, we have Exchange, GroupWise, Office 365, and Gmail, and that's all archived in Retain. Those are the supported email systems. And then for social media, you have for social media, it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Yammer. And for instant messaging, it's Yahoo IM, Link, Skype for Business, Google Hangouts, and AOL IM. And as I stated before, it's a little different with social media and search, whereas where Retain will actually monitor and filter those communications and use policies to ensure that your employees aren't communicating things that they shouldn't be, and then it will archive that as well. And then with search, what it does is with Wikipedia, Yahoo, Bing, Google, and YouTube searches, when an employee is searching, whether that's on the site or through the search bar, Retain monitors everything that they're searching and will prevent them from searching things that you don't want them to, and then we'll archive those searches. So that's kind of Retain, the platforms that are supported. And then, of course, it's all archived into one central archive, and you can perform those e-discovery, you can search, and you can have immediate access to the archive data. So that's really what makes Retain different, and why we've seen many organizations want to migrate from a legacy solution to Retain, to have quick and easy access to their data, and to have one central location for everything.
Great. I just wanted to throw out there once more, if there are any particular questions anybody has, please put that through in the Q&A. I did mention at the very start, Q, that you might be able to say a little thing about the Infotech Award, I guess we were given, and if anybody has any information about that or the Gartner Magic Quadrant reporting, we have plenty of information we can send to you about that as well, some third-party reporting.
Yeah, so recently Infotech did a report on Retain and found that it was the best value in its price range. Infotech has their archiving report that they came out with, and they analyzed a number of vendors. I think there was 11 in total, and Retain was named the best overall value by them in their price range. And then, of course, we were named as a champion in that report as well. I would encourage you to learn more about that by visiting our website. We have some information there. But yes, it was a great award. Really helps us to see, and they talked a lot about what we do that is different, and that is that the unified archive, being able to support the things that we do, and having that central archive for all electronic communication. And then, of course, we were in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for communication archiving, enterprise communication archiving, and we were also recognized there. So just some outside sources to help reinforce what we've said about the idea of having a next generation or archiving 2.0 solution, and Retain, of course, is that solution. And if you're looking to make that migration, we'd encourage you to check us out. Give us a call. We can get you a quote for how much it's going to cost, what it's going to take. We'll help walk you through that process and give you an idea of what it will take for both the migration and to implement Retain and have that archiving 2.0 solution.
Great. Do you want to double check, Q? Are there any more questions directed specifically to you? I don't see any more on my end.
Okay, so the question is, we have Novell GroupWise running on Linux. Very soon we're going to migrate to Windows and Exchange. Can you briefly tell us how this archive and Retain can help us? That's a great one. So principally this webinar was about archive system migration, so taking a legacy archive and moving it to Retain. However, Retain can help you with that situation. So if you have a legacy email system that you're looking to move, it's very simple with what Retain can do. So what Retain does, so what you'll need to do is you take your GroupWise or other email system. We'll talk about this one in particular. Your GroupWise system, and you will tie that to Retain. So start archiving everything into Retain from GroupWise, and Retain will be able to do that. Then, now you can go and you can implement your new system. In your case, it's Exchange. Retain will now tie to Exchange, and all your old messages from GroupWise are in Retain. You don't have to worry about keeping a GroupWise system running. You can have them in Retain, and now you can, and because it's platform agnostic in Retain, when you implement your new Exchange system, you can tie that directly to Retain, and now you have your Exchange system for all your new email messages and your Retain system for all your old messages, and now those two can communicate, and it'll look seamless to your end users. When they go to want to find a message that's archived, they'll be able to access it directly from Outlook, the Retain archive, and be able to see messages that are archived from the same central location. So that's one quick and easy way that we can help you with that migration, is by implementing Retain, tying your GroupWise system to that, archiving everything into Retain, and then implementing your Exchange system and tying that back to Retain. And now you have the ability to have your new system with Exchange and have those old emails in the Retain system. Also, just to take it another step, we do have what we call the Migration Toolkit. So that one doesn't necessarily have to have Retain. We would encourage you to use Retain because it's a great archiving solution. But if you're just looking to make that move without doing the archive, we do have a Migration Toolkit that actually helps you walk through and do a migration directly from GroupWise to Exchange. If you visit our website, there's more information on there as well. But just know that Retain can help that migration, as well as we have a Migration Toolkit, and that's about specifically email system migrations.
I believe that's all the questions, and please, again, if you have any more, please send them to us. You can email us there on the screen, or the email will be going out to everyone who attended this webinar with the recording as well. In conclusion, just wanted to thank everybody for joining us, and look forward to that email coming out to you, and encourage everybody also to check out our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/GuavaTV. That's GWAVATV, and we have lots of recorded webinars along with a lot of more information and admin overview of Retain and lots of stuff there. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.